Hi, welcome back to the podcast. It is your humble host, Sophia Dirks. Yep. So basically, today I'm kind of going at this without a script because I'm a bit lazy, and I wanted to talk about content and consuming content. And I think specifically, this is something that I'm dealing with really heavily right now at this current moment. I think that everybody right now is just consuming a lot of content instead of being the ones creating content. They're consuming others' creations. And I don't mean this just in a social media way, though that is a big facet of it. I think I mean it a lot in a just general way as well. I think that we as a society have become less creative. But yeah, it's just my general overview of this episode. So yeah, enjoy. And yeah, I hope that your winter season's going well. And welcome back to the podcast once again, The Changing Seasons with Sophia Dirks. I think that it's difficult a lot right now not to get caught up in kind of drowning out your own thoughts and your own ideas. And I'm saying that not from a point of judgment, but from a point of understanding and from a point of personal experience, because I've been dealing with a lot of things lately, and my what is it? Sorry, coping mechanism. Gosh, it took me a minute to find. Is definitely drowning out my thoughts, because sometimes like my brain definitely tends to scare me. And I don't mean that in a way which I'm scared that I'll do something to myself or to others, or I'll hurt somebody or something in my life. I mean that more of a way that just the noise in my brain sometimes is hard to face, and it's a bit scary, and maybe that's a personal issue, but I find that, it can just be a larger issue. And when it comes to social media, I think that we get lost in it oftentimes because we're searching for something that we think that we don't have. But I was actually listening to a different podcast, pretty popular one, Diary of a CEO, with that guy who kind of looks like Trevor Noah. um, and he had a podcast with a Buddhist monk on it. And the one thing that stood out for me most, besides his preaching of meditation, was how he mentioned that everything we need is within us. And the constant chase, especially in the Western world, for material things ultimately is what brings us unhappiness, because everything that we desire is within. And you may be like, well, why don't I just cut open my arm and, like, why isn't there dollar bills flowing out if it's within me? But you earn the dollar bills, if you think about it, through the action that is within you, within your body, within your mind, within your control. And so I think that's one of the main parts of why we are constantly consuming content, because we're chasing something that only we can fulfill ourselves. And then I think the second part of consuming content, specifically online, is what I mainly struggle with, and like kind of wanting to drown out your own thoughts and stuff, or running away from something that you haven't quite come to terms with, whether that's trauma or grief or something even mundane, but mainly something internal that you don't want to have the free time for your brain to think about and process because it's painful. And I'm definitely on the running away side of that, but I think that if you are finding yourself struggling with the consumption instead of the creation of content, then you can really be on either spectrum, on either side of the spectrum, honestly. And I think that either way, recognizing it, even if you don't have an answer to address the issue, is a really important first step. Secondly, what I think is important to mention as well is that you may be like, oh, I only spend an hour on my phone. That's great. I love that. Oh, I do this, and that. And like, I'm not constantly consuming content, but content includes music, content includes books, content includes art, podcasts, magazines, anything along the lines of something somebody else created creatively or in another way that is content. And even journals and stuff that you're learning from can sometimes be content. There is a difference between something that you're learning from while if you're like seeking knowledge, and content that you're using to fulfill something within you. But mainly, I'm going to be talking about the book kind of content, the podcast kind of content, music, that sort of stuff. So, when it comes to books, I think that books have a lot of important messages in them, fiction and nonfiction, but specifically in my personal experience, my issue has always been about fiction books because the stories entertain me and I like to be just sucked into a world. And I think that also has to do with the running away piece. So if you're like an avid reader, I'd suggest that you look inward and you do some reflection and you decide and you recognize whether you're reading because you love the reading or because you don't love your current reality, the world that you're in, your thoughts, your everything. And I think that while being a heavy reader is something that I've always been proud of in my life, I think that right now it's something that I'm kind of challenging as a part of my identity because I think I'm losing a lot of time in my real life because I'm reading my books. And I'm still young, but you never know what day is your last day. And I think that that's kind of my point when it comes to consuming content versus creating things. Consuming content is time that you could have spent creating content, whether that's art or music or books or videos or social media content. And you have so limited time here on this earth, and there's so many actions that you can do to improve your life and strengthen bonds and try new things. And it's what a waste to spend all that time just consuming stories from other people instead of making your own story, instead of writing your own book, instead of filming your own video, instead of trying a new food, creating a new experience, new memories. The point of content is to inspire, not to fulfill. And the point of content is to share, not to replace your own time and your own memories and your own experiences. And I think that books can share really important stories and just be fun. Just be fun to read a book. I read books for fun. I think I've read about 30 books this year, coming to a close at the end of 2025, but I think that I need to work on writing my own book, which I am doing. But I need to remember that books have a purpose, and its purpose isn't to replace your own stories ultimately. And when it comes to music and podcasts, I think that the main thing that I've recognized in my own personal experience is that books and podcasts music and podcasts ultimately are a way of creating noise so that you don't have to face the quiet. And quiet can be thick and loud and can be thick and loud and disturbing and uncomfortable. But quiet is really important for reflection, and even if the quiet is loud and your brain is loud, when there's not something constantly playing in your ear, eventually, if you put the podcast down and you put the music down, even my podcast, if you're listening to my podcast for noise, that's fine. But just if it's too much noise, put it down, click pause, close your laptop, shut off your phone, because sometimes quiet, no matter how loud, is the thing that we need in our lives. And eventually the quiet will become more silence, if that makes sense. The quiet won't become as loud. The quiet will become peaceful eventually. If you, let it stew a little bit, if you push yourself outside of your comfort zone for a little bit. And I think while podcasts and music can be helpful and inspiring, and, podcasts especially being helpful, but music especially being inspiring and emotional and relatable, I think that it's most important that we give ourselves, that quiet and that time and that space. Yeah, but thank you for tuning in. This one's a bit of a short one. I just wanted to talk a little bit with you guys, get an episode out. Yeah, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this winter season. New episodes coming soon. I love you, and thanks for coming along with me for the ride. All right, love you guys. Bye.